Today I wanted to share just a little bit about a reference book that I refer to sometimes. I'm not an engineer by trade, but I do support them professionally, and this book has actually been a pretty good reference for doing that. Injection molds and molding. It's how most of our cheap plastic crap gets made, and also some pretty amazing stuff. So, first thing I wanted to do was share this little fun thing though. It's a company called Protomold that makes rapid molds. I have no relation to them. But they send out little goodies like this from time to time to customers, and I was able to snag one at my day job. So this is actually a kind of pseudo model of an injection mold. Pop it apart in the orientation that we usually see molds mounted up, and you've got a nice little pseudo slider there, the actual part that we are making, and mold pair, cavity pair. So it's kind of a neat thing in that it just shows what actually does happen when you mold a part. This little yellow hole, that's where molten plastic would be injected, and it would go down through the runner, through the gate, and flood the cavity, which is made up of the two halves coming together. This also shows what a slide is, and that's how you get undercuts and features that otherwise would be difficult or impossible to extract. So anyway, fun little thing. It's kind of neat. They also even shot in the negative, and a little example of a core pin. Anyway, plastic would come in here, flood that, then part would get ejected. They modeled in the ejector plate here, so spits the part out, and everything comes back together. Oops. Without flipping the mold around, everything comes back together and you're ready for your next one. So it's a fun little thing from Protomold. I don't know if they've made these recently. It's been quite a few years since they got it. Copyright 2008. So they probably did a run of these and then went on to the next marketing doodad. Anyway, this book, it's kind of an interesting one. Let's see, 1987, so a little bit old, but the thing about molding is nothing much has changed over those 34 years. So core concepts are still the same, and this pretty clearly lays them all out. It's a good reference for me when I need to get into kind of looking at mold quality stuff or part quality, see what somebody's done right or done wrong. So they go through kind of how to think through your product, where you want to put your gate location, and as I mentioned, gate is after your various plastic transport paths, the place where the plastic is actually shot into the mold cavity. That can matter quite a bit. If you're molding a knife, for instance, you would not want the gate to be on the cutting edge. They go through weld lines, so if you are injecting plastic from multiple points, that plastic is going to meet at some point in the cavity, and you got to be careful about how that happens, where that happens, draft angles, trying to pull a cylinder out of something is pretty hard, but if it's tapered, then it's a lot easier. So anyway, they talk through a whole lot of that, moldability features, basics, and I say basics here because making molds is incredibly complex. Basics of cavity fabrication, and then some of the setup and plastic selection stuff. What's kind of fun about this is that the book does show its age. Getting through some basics, I mean, this is a diagram of an injection molding system. machine. They really haven't changed much. What has changed, though, are the tools involved in designing molds. And so this is where this gets kind of funny. Let me zoom in a little bit here and see if we can focus. So they talk about the use of CAD. CAD's so ubiquitous these days, there's no question. Everybody uses CAD. But they talk about some disadvantages around CAD. And at the time, the equipment, including all the software, is quite expensive. The cost of CAD CAM, so that would be your, say, SolidWorks plus Mastercam, or just Fusion 360 with the CAM adder, $200,000 to $500,000 in 1987 dollars. So that would mean that you're pushing probably double that in today's dollars. And I don't think I've heard of a CAD package in the past, say, 5 years that costs that much until you get into some really complex stuff with simulation. But I mean, even your full stack license of CATIA or NX is not going to run you that much per seat. The other thing they point out is a quick way to look at moisture content in the plastic, which is critical. And they just say pretty much take a hot plate, drop some plastic on it, put another piece of metal on top, and see what happens. Try zooming in on that. So you can see that there's a range of porosity in there, and that is because the moisture in the plastic, when heated, turns to steam, forms bubbles, and then you obviously have voids in your part. Sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes it really does. Certain plastics are particularly susceptible to that. Your polycarbonates really want to be thoroughly dried at the pellet level before you even think about shooting that material. Anyway, interesting book. Even though it's pretty old, it's a really good guide for somebody who's interested in what plastic injection molding tends towards. And yeah.